Hello friends and welcome to YouTube channel Freedom Tech. And in today's video, as I told you, we are going to continue our how to create our own attendance system with the help of face recognition program and opencv on Raspberry OS Bullseye 64-bit version. In last video, I have shared with you how to configure the face recognition program on Raspberry OS Bullseye 64-bit version. In today's video, we are going to send our face recognition data on Windows machine on XAMPP MySQL database server. Okay, so before we move to our practical, friends, if you learn something from our videos, please consider to subscribe our channel. Okay friends, thank you so much, and let's get started. So friends, first you need to clone the repository. Okay, so I'm going to simply open the browser, and as you can see, face reco attendance part 2, this is what our part 2 repository. So simply copy the code, go to the link, copy and minimize the browser and open terminal, and we are going to run the command sudo git clone and paste the link and just hit enter. It will clone our repository. So we have now our face reco attendance part 2 repository. So simply what we are going to do, we need to change the owner. So sudo chown space hyphen capital R space hyphen capital R, then pi is our user, pi is our group, then we need to mention the folder which we want to change our owner. Okay, so face reco attendance part 2 is our folder. Simply hit enter. That's it, we have successfully changed the owner permission. Now what we want to do, we are going to simply open our Thony Python IDE. Okay, so go to the menu, programming, Thony Python IDE, and then it will open our Python IDE. That's it. Now simply go to the file, click on open, and we need to go inside the pi, and here it is, our face reco attendance part 2. Click on, and we have here 3 files: create, drop database.py, search.py and main.py. Okay, so we are going to open all these 3 files. Click on OK, then we are going to open file, open search.py. okay, then again file, click on open, and then main.py. That's it. So we have now all the files inside our Thony Python IDE. Now what we want to do, I am going to minimize the VNC, and this is what our XAMPP PHP myadmin. Okay, so first you need to install the XAMPP on Windows machine. So just visit their website and install the XAMPP. Okay, then as you can see, I have already installed and I have started the Apache service and the MySQL service. Okay, as you can see, there is a stop, means I have started the service. Okay, so you need to simply start Apache and MySQL service. Then we need to know our Windows machine IP address. So run the cmd command and it will open our cmd. Then run the ipconfig command and it will show our Windows machine IP address. As you can see, so 192.168.0.102 is my Windows machine IP address. So in your case, of course, it may be different. So just open cmd, run ipconfig command, and then you will get your Windows machine IP address. Okay, then open the browser and run the 192.168.0.102 means the Windows machine IP address, then /php myadmin, and just hit enter. It will open php myadmin window like this way. Okay, then we need to click on here, which is the server 127.0.0.1. as you can see, simply we need to click here, and then we will get this kind of window. Okay, and we need to go inside the user accounts because we want to create the new user account which allow to access our Raspberry Pi 4 machine, the XAMPP MySQL database. Okay, so we need to create a new user account. So simply we need to click on new user account. Okay, then as you can see, this is what the users which currently we have. I have created a Freedom Tech 123 user already, but we are going to create a new user. So simply, as you can see, there is an option add user account. Simply click on add user account, then it will open window like this way. Okay, so we need to select here a use text field. As you can see, use text field. From host name, again we need to click on here. From host name, we need to select the use text field also, and the password also use text field. Okay, so username use text field, host name also use text field, and password also use text field. That's it. So now simply we need to mention the user. So I am going to mention freedom check YT. This is what our user, and then we need to mention host name as our Raspberry Pi 4 machine IP address. Okay, so simply VNC, again open terminal, and we are going to run the command if config, and then as you can see the WLAN IP address is 192.168.0.103. so I need to mention the WLAN IP address. Okay, so I am going to mention 192.168.0.103. that's it. Then the password, so mention the password. Okay, again retype the password. That's it. Now simply scroll down, and global privileges, we need to click on check all. Just scroll down, click on go, don't save, and then you will see this kind of error. No worry about the error. Okay, simply we need to again go here. As you can see the database, click on database, then just click on ignore all and just scroll up. Okay, and now click on user accounts, and we will see our new user. As you can see, we have created a successfully new user, freedom tech YT. Now with the help of this user we can create the database, then the tables, and inside that tables we are going to create the columns. Okay, so now we are going to move on our Raspberry Pi 4 machine, and here it is. As I told you, first we need to create the database, so we need to open the create and drop database.python file. Okay, and in last video we have installed our mysql.connector package, so I have import mysql.connector. then mydb is just a variable. Okay, so mydb is equal to, we need to mention our connector, which is the mysql.connector.connect. then we need to mention the host. So host, in this case we need to mention our remote machine IP address, so we need to mention our Windows machine IP address, which is the 192.168.0.102. then the user which we created, which is the name of that particular user, freedom tech YT. Okay, so we need to mention the user which we created on our XAMPP. Okay, so freedom tech YT is the user, and the password I have mentioned freedom tech 123. that's it. Then after we need to create here a database, so we are going to fire the query, which is this one, a.execute create database, and this is just a database name, the attendance YT. Okay, so you can change the name of the database. Okay, I have mentioned the attendance YT. So create database is our query, then we need to mention here the database name which we want to create inside our XAMPP MySQL database. Then a is equal to mydb cursor, and then this is what the drop database query, but right now we don't want to drop our database, we only want to create the database. So also we need to comment the a.execute SQL, because we SQL is basically the drop database query, so we don't want to drop database right now, we only want to create the database. So we only want this query a.execute create database and the database name. That's it. So simply now we need to run our code. So if I run the code, there is no errors, means we have successfully create our database inside the XAMPP. So if we go here and if we refresh our page, so as you can see there is a attendance YT which we successfully created, and if I click on the database, as you can see right now there is no table, so we are going to create the table, and inside that we are going to create the columns. Okay, so simply again we need to move on our VNC server, and then now we have our database, so we can uncomment the database variable, and this is what our database name, attendance YT, and we need to mention here a comma, because we mention a new variable which is the database, so we need to mention a comma after the password. Okay, as you can see here I have mentioned the comma. That's it. Now scroll down, and here now we need to create the table, and inside the table we need to create the columns. So we need to uncomment this query, create table. The table name is user attendance. Okay, the table name is user attendance, and then inside that we have a date, then the username, and date time. These three variables we are going to mention inside our column. So date, username and date time. So date is a varchar, then username is also varchar, and date time is also varchar. Then what we want here, we want only one user enter only once, means one user entry only we need to mention inside our database only once at per day. Okay, so it means when user mark the attendance in database, it will add the entry, it will add particular user entry only once. Okay, so we are going to see all these things in practical way. So this is how we are going to create our table, and we are going to mention the primary key for the date and the username, because we don't want to add a particular user on same date again and again. Okay, so the entry will be only once in one day. Okay, so now we will get the better idea when we run the program. So let's just create first our table. Okay, so all is good. Now we don't want our create database query, we only want the create table query. So save the code, run the code. There is no error, means we have successfully create our table. So if we click on attendance YT, as you can see we have user attendance table, and we need to click here, and inside that, as you can see, we have a date, username and date time. So we have successfully created our database, we have successfully created our table, and inside that table we have now date, username and date time. Means we have successfully complete our first part. Now what we want to do, we are going to move on the part where we are going to recognize the faces, and we are going to send our data in our database. Okay, so again I am going to open VNC, and we need to move now in main.py. This main.py file is basically capture the faces and send the particular person face name inside the database. Okay, so same file I have shared with you in last, means in part 1. Okay, so I have only mentioned here this function, which is the MySQL add data. Okay, so as you can see, same things, the MyDB variable mysql.connector.connect, then the host name, then the username, which is freedom tech YT. So we need to mention our new user, which is the freedom tech YT. Then the password is same, then the database. Okay, then a is equal to MyDB cursor, then SQL is equal to, this is what our query, insert ignore into user attendance. So why ignore? Because it will ignore a same user. Okay, so it means it will not add the same user entry in database again and again on same date. Okay, so as I told you, we will get the better idea when we run our program. Okay, so this is what our query, insert ignore into user attendance is our table name, and inside that we have date, username and date time, then the value like this way. Okay, then data is equal to today, so we need to mention today date. Okay, so that's why I have mentioned here a today. So today is basically our from date time import date. Okay, so from date time import date, and then I have mentioned here, as you can see, this today variable is date dot today. It will show us a today date. Okay, so today is equal to date dot today, and then I have mentioned this today variable inside the data variable. Okay, inside this data is first today variable, because we want to add first our date. So date is basically the today, then the usernames. So names we will get from here when we mention our function over here, MySQL add data, and there is a names is equal to names match index. So we will get our name from this name variable. Okay, so I have mentioned here a name, then DT string is basically our current time. So for that I have mentioned here from date time import date time, our function, and here if you see, then we need to call the now date time dot now, then DT string is hours, minute, and this P is basically AM or the PM. So DT string is basically current time. Okay, so I have mentioned here a DT string, as you can see the last is DT string. So data is basically the variable and this data variable is today date, the names of user which will recognize by our face recognition program, then dt string is our current time. Then a dot execute will be our SQL query, which is the insert query and the data. Okay, so now what we are going to do, this is what our same program which will recognize our faces. Then as you can see, I have called here our function MySQL add data, which is our function name, and inside that we need to pass the name variable, because this name is our recognized person names. Okay, so simply if I save the code and if I run the code, so as you can see, it's detected my face, there is a name and the rectangle. So now if we open our Firefox and we need to simply refresh our browser, we will have the entry. As you can see, my name and current date and the current time with the AM. Okay, so as I told you, we have successfully entered our user entry inside our database. Okay, now what I am going to do here, I am going to again start our program, and it will recognize my face again, but the entry will be old. It will not add the new entry, because we want, as you can see, it's recognized my face, there is a name and bounding box. Okay, but if I open our Firefox and if I refresh the browser, as you can see here, there is an old entry 7:59 AM. It means it will not add the new entry. Okay, now what I am going to do, I am going to show here a new face, then it will add a new entry, because this entry is basically new user entry. Okay, so I am going to start the code again, and as you can see, it's now recognized the new faces. Okay, so this is the new face. Now this entry will be added in our database, because this is the new face. Okay, so now what I am going to do, so I am going to simply stop the code, and if we open our browser, simply we need to refresh here our browser, and then as you can see, we have a new entry, because this is the new user and the new time, but the date is same. Okay, now if we again show the Anastasia user face for our face recognition program, it will not add the entry, because entry is already in our database for today date. Now what I am going to do, I am going to show you a practical way. We are going to mention here our next day date manually. Okay, then it will add my entry. Okay, so here we mention our today, as this is basically our current today's date. Okay, so here I am going to mention the date manually, which is our next day date, means the 10th. So 2022 2, and I am going to mention the 10th. This is what our next day date, because today is 9. Okay, so 2022 to 10. Now if I save the code, if I run the code, it will detect my face and it will add the entry with the new date. So as you can see, it's detected my face, as you can see. Okay, now I am going to simply stop the code, and if we open our browser and we need to refresh our browser, and then here it is, as you can see, now we have entry with my name and the date. As you can see, the date is changed, because we mentioned next day date, which is the 10 to 2022. Okay, this is what a new entry for a new day. Okay, this is, we can call a unique entry for per day. That's why I have mentioned here a primary key when we create the table. Okay, because we want a single user, a particular single user entry only once for particular day. Okay, that's why I have mentioned here a primary key. That's it. So I hope you all clear. Now how to search the entry? So for that I have created here a final search.py, and here also same things. So this is what our function MySQL search, and the name inside that, and the same things, the MyDB host name, and the user, we need to change the user. So Freedom Tech YT is our user, and password is same, the database is also same. Then this is what the query, it will search the particular username. So I am going to simply save the code, and if we run the code, it will ask us to enter username which we want to search. So in this case I want to search my name, hit enter, and as you can see we have the today date and we have a next day date which is the 9/2/2022 and 10/2/2022, and the username is there also and the timing when he marked his attendance on the system. Okay, so this is how all the program work. Now how to drop the database, means how to delete the database. So simply we need to move again, create and drop database, and here now we don't want to create our table, we want to drop the database. So this one query which is the SQL drop database and mention the database name. Then we need to execute this query. So a dot execute, and we need to mention our SQL variable because SQL is our drop database attendance, YT is our database name. Now simply if we save the code, run the code, there is no error, means we have successfully dropped our database. So simply if we refresh the phpMyAdmin, as you can see now there is no database, there is no attendance YT database inside our XAMPP MySQL database server. Okay, so this is how, friends, you can create your own user attendance program with the help of face recognition program. Okay, I hope you will learn something from this video. We'll meet our next video. Till then, thank you, take care, and bye bye.